Right, so after weeks of waiting, we finally have a new Apple event, guys. It's called Let Loose. It's happening on May 7, and of course, as you can see by the invite, it's very much related to iPads, so let's delve into what to expect from this event. Let's begin with the refresh that is most likely coming at this event, and that is the iPad Air 6. Now, why I think it's most likely is because number one, we haven't had a refresh to the iPad Air in nearly 2 years, and it's usually on an 18-month refresh cycle, but also number two, this is going to be a pretty boring update. Because Apple's basically updating the specs and calling it a day. It's going from Apple M1 to M2, which of course is going to give you slightly better performance. That's going to be completely wasted on iPadOS anyways. It's also going to get Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3 support, like other recent releases, so yay, I guess? Okay, I'm being a little mean. There is actually one big aspect with this refresh that I'm leaving out, and that of course is the fact there's no longer going to be one iPad Air. There's also going to be a new 12.9-inch size. In theory, launching this does make sense because I'm sure there's a decent chunk of consumers who want the big display experience the iPad Pro offers, but without the massive price tag, and so this should be adequate enough for most. But like I've mentioned many times on the channel, this won't exactly be a cheap iPad. You see, based on the fact the 12.9-inch iPad Pro used to be $200 more when it was using LCD like the 11-inch, there is a strong possibility the 12.9-inch iPad Air follows suit, and it starts at $799, which is very much iPad Pro territory. That's how much the 11-inch Pro goes for right now, and yes, I know the upcoming iPad Pros are going to get more expensive, but it's still a tough pill to swallow, guys. This will essentially be a 60Hz LCD iPad for $800, and so I really don't see the point in this. I mean, you can go on Apple's refurb site right now and you can find the M1 iPad Pro for around this price, and remember that will get cheaper once the M3 model launches, and also the M2 iPad Pro is eventually going to find its way on the refurb site. So why would you buy this? And yes, I know many are going to argue the same thing regarding the iPhone 15 Plus and MacBook Air 15-inch, but at least with those products, there is some sort of advantage they offer. The Plus has of course the best battery life in the range, and the 15-inch Air is considerably thinner and lighter than a MacBook Pro. The 12.9-inch iPad Air, however, won't have better battery life than the Pro because it lacks a variable refresh rate. And while yes, it's called the iPad Air, there's actually leaks the iPad Pro is going to be thinner. So once again, I ask you guys, what's the point in this? You know what makes plain sense though? Subscribing to this channel, of course. I would greatly appreciate it, and it would bring you the latest commentary about the world of Apple right to your subscription box, so please consider it. It would be appreciated. We're trying to hit our next milestone of 16,000 subscribers, so join the Saranbyte gang now. Anyways, if you're still wondering why Apple's launching this new bloody iPad, it's clear to me that Apple's just creating the perfect ladder of choices, so that if you go into an Apple store thinking you want the iPad Air, you're gonna walk out with the iPad Pro because it's only $200 more, and so you end up getting the highest end device, and that's gonna make Timothy very happy. I guess it's not all bad news because this obviously will eventually go and sell, and maybe it could be $650 in a few months, in which case, that's a pretty solid deal. But the only advice I will give you guys is that you should not buy this at retail price. Oh, by the way, completely forgot about this, though you probably don't care anyways. But the iPad Air is going to have a fancy new camera module that's very similar to the one rumored for iPhone 16. But yes, that should be the only visual change. Even the dimensions are going to be very similar to existing iPads. And I'm hoping the colors are more vibrant this time, but a part of me thinks Apple believes muted colors exude premiumness, and so they're most likely going to give us yet another range of colors that look grey in most lighting. Moving on to more exciting news, we have the M3 iPad Pro. So this has been long rumored, guys, as a radical upgrade for the Pros, considering they haven't changed much since 2018. And the big change is of course going to be OLED. OLED is something we're already familiar with on the iPhone and the Apple Watch, and it's going to give these iPads a ton of benefits like increased brightness, higher contrast ratio, lower power consumption, and also LTPO tech so the display can go down to 10 Hz to save battery life. Though I have long theorized that Apple is going to bring the always-on display to the iPad Pro so that of course it can support standby, and so if that's the case, it should be able to go down to 1 Hz. And notice how I said iPads in plural, because yes, It's heavily rumored the 11-inch won't be left out, and it's also getting OLED just like the bigger size, which hasn't been the case since 2020, so yeah, that's very nice. Not only this, but Apple's using the same lipo tech they used on the 15 Pro to shrink the bezels, and so the new size options are going to be 11.1 inches and 13 inches, and it seems the actual bodies aren't going to be that much larger. However, they are ever so slightly different that you will have to buy a new Magic Keyboard, which isn't fun. Also, what's worrying is that, as I mentioned earlier, the iPad Pros are getting even thinner. It's going to be 5mm thin, which is a good 1mm thinner than the already very thin iPad Pros we have today. And let me remind you, those already bend pretty easily, so I very much worry about the durability of these iPads. I guess Mr. Jerry Rig Everything will have to put that to the test. Now, all these changes are not going to be cheap for Apple, especially OLEDs, and so a consistent rumor has been the fact these Pros are getting more expensive. I've been pretty mixed on this. No one really likes a price increase in the first place, let's be honest, but especially for the iPad Pro, where it's already hard enough justifying today's retail price, these getting even $100 price hikes would be a very tough sell. So I do wonder what final pricing will be for these iPads. There are some ludicrous rumors out there saying it could be $1,500, but hopefully it's not that bad. Obviously, we're also getting the typical spec refresh with this iPad, so of course, it's going to get the relatively new M3 chipset, which is going to be utterly overkill. There's also talk about MagSafe wireless charging, which I'm pretty iffy on. I'd much rather have the Mac version of MagSafe. And also, there's still talk regarding a new Magic Keyboards with a larger trackpad, an aluminium top casing, as well as a 3rd generation Apple Pencil. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching. Hey, are you wondering what Apple's changing with the 3rd generation Apple Pencil? Well, today let's delve into that because we have some interesting rumors about squeeze gestures as well as integration with Vision OS. It's pretty weird actually that up until now we've had no idea on what to expect with the next generation Apple Pencil. We know there's been one in the works since Apple's refreshing the iPad Pro's accessories alongside its major OLED overhaul, but it's only now we're getting some sort of idea on the upgrades we could see with Apple Pencil 3. So let's first talk about the mysterious squeeze gesture. This was referenced in iOS 17.5 beta, and to no one's surprise, this squeeze could be used for certain actions, but unfortunately there's no specific details on what kind of function it's gonna serve. It doesn't take a genius